Welcome to Conway On the Record. This is the official podcast of the Log Cabin Democrats. I'm Drew Mitchell, and I'm your host today. Thanks for having me. With me today is Jeanette Anderton, the editor of the Log Cabin Democrat. Jeanette, welcome.
Thank you.
And Jimmy Warren.
Yes,
thank you for joining us. You're a community advocate, and we're going to be talking a little bit today about Black History Month and getting to know you a little bit right now, too. So
awesome.
let's find out about you.
All right.
How did you get into becoming a community advocate? Was this something you always had a passion for, or?
Yeah. To be honest with you, I really don't know. I definitely didn't always have a passion for it. I think the defining moment was back in, I hate to lie and say the year, but when Barack Obama was actually running for president, I was in college, and I think just that build up before he even spoke at the DNC, just watching his trajectory. I don't know if y'all can tell or not because it's audio, but if the video comes out, I'm a black male. Barack Obama's a black male. So just seeing a black male with, at the time I had one daughter, so seeing just that representation of him interacting with his daughter and seeing the things that he was doing. So then he, taken a long way to tell the story, and then he was in politics and eventually ran for president. So when he won president, I got the chance to get my first kind of real community involvement. I was able to go and volunteer with him at his National Day of Service in Washington, D.C., where I worked on the communications team that was in charge of getting the organization Big Brothers and Big Sisters volunteers throughout the country to get people to volunteer, donate money, just to get people to get involved. And it was from that moment that I'd say that spark of passion really ignited. And just, everything that Barack Obama, just embodiment, he was, this was not only the piece of seeing an African-American president, actually seeing somebody who was cool, somebody who talked and quoted Jay-Z fluently, someone who loved God, somebody who loved the community, but somebody that you could look up to. This was the first person outside of an athlete for me that really sparked my passion for anything. And just in that sense, that's where it really started and where really the kind of the origin story started for Jimmy Warren and just being involved in the community.
So that was 2008, I guess, right?
Yeah. So we're looking at 2007, 2008. This was, like I said, this was kind of before the DNC speech. This was when he was just a senator in Illinois. And I think this was about the time of that first book that came out. So this is when Barack Obama just really started bubbling. This is before he announced his presidency. This is when he was just kind of for the most part, getting popular and really drawing attention to himself. It was from that first time that I saw him or heard him speak or was reading about him in a newspaper that just immediately gravitated me towards him.
So are you from Central Arkansas?
Yeah.
Conway?
So I grew up in Crossett, Arkansas. Oh. It is 5 miles from the Louisiana border in southeast Arkansas.
Okay. All right. How'd you get to Central Arkansas, if I can ask?
Yep. So after Crossett, I went to school at Arkansas Tech University.
Russellville.
Went to Russellville, spent about 6 to 8 years of my life in Russellville. Went to undergraduate school there, got my degree in communications and sociology. And then upon graduation, I was afforded the opportunity to be a graduate assistantship. So I got my master's degree in higher education administration. So spent all that time in Russellville. And then 2009, when Hewlett Packard made their decision to build here in Conway, I got the opportunity to work on that and was hired in Little Rock. And while they were building, I started working in Little Rock. And when they made the full announcement that they would have the plant open here in Conway, that's when I moved to Conway.
Jimmy, you're not old enough to have that much of a backstory. That's really impressive.
Yeah.
So I know you were with the Conway Area Chamber of Commerce for a while.
Yes.
When did that start?
That was, I should have did like a timeline. I think that was 2014. So Conway Chamber of Commerce was 2014. I think that was that was January 2014, I believe it was.
All right, I'm going to embarrass you for a minute. Okay, so when you were with the chamber, you won a pretty prestigious award. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. You're going to have to tell me which one.
I know. I should have it in front of me on my notes.
Is that the...
Minority Enterprise?
Yes. Okay. Mm-hmm. So that actually came a few years after the chamber. So that was Young Minority Professional of the Year. So that was a big moment personally and professionally, because everything kind of came back full circle from just working at the chamber and then kind of starting, growing seeds there, and then being able to leave the organization and then being awarded that same award after I was gone. Actually, that meant quite a bit to me. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think that was the second time we met. The first time we met, you invited me to a community mixtape workshop.
Oh, yeah.
I thought that earlier when you were talking about Barack Obama and Jay-Z, how he was cool. And so I didn't even have this on my list. But let's talk a little bit about that, because that's how we first met. And I kept your number because I was like, this is cool.
That was, time goes by so fast. It seems like that was so long ago. I think that may have been almost like 2 years ago, 3 years ago, maybe.
Yeah, I think so.
Great people downtown Conway over at the studio, Kate and Jessica Crum, who run the studio. This was when the studio was just starting, and they were looking at ways to give back into the community and get involved. And it was almost like a TED Talk, but it was just a community mixtape. I know when I walked in earlier, you guys told me to share some things on my expertise, and I guess my expertise would probably be rap music, because that and textbooks and politics are the only thing that I say that I find a lot of interest in and that I know a little bit about. But the community mixtapes was basically, we took rap songs that made a difference in my life, and I just basically spoke on how they applied to the community. So we went everywhere from Nicki Minaj, Jay-Z, Beyonce, Eminem, Kanye, and we basically broke apart some of those lyrics. And a lot of people just look at rap as something that's surface level, and we really just went into the deeper meaning in some of the historical context about these lyrics and how they apply just to everyday people in their quest to make their zip code a little bit better than it is.
Yeah, I remember. The workshop stayed with me, so that was good. All right, so you had a sweet idea, if you'll pardon the pun.
Yeah.
So you partnered with Patty Cakes Bakery. This is the second year to do so.
Yes.
And to raise awareness for Black History Month, you guys they're doing free cookies on Saturdays throughout February that feature different, Black history people. It kicked off this Saturday with Scottie, Pippen, and Maya Angelo.
Yeah.
So talk a little bit about that. How did you have the idea? What makes you think, oh, you know what, free cookies? That's a way to get people talking.
Absolutely. So first, I just want to begin by saying thank you to Miss Patty Stovall, just an incredible human being. And I think over the last 18 months, we've seen just that there is a lack of good people out there. So you really want to just pay attention and give flowers to those who not only make an impact in the community, but just who make a personal impact on your life. And Patty is definitely been that person. I have a problem when I get bored that my mind runs. So last year, I can't even remember where the idea just stemmed from, but it was just thinking of ways to I have two daughters who are young, and one is in junior high now, one is in elementary school, but just thinking of creative ways to get people to know about their Black history facts. I felt like that people weren't talking about Black History Month, and there was an opportunity just to provide some community awareness through there. So what better way to engage than to put a prominent African-American on a cookie. And that's what we did. Last year, we started out with Martin Luther King, and I can't even go down the list and remember who we had, but we just put people there. We talked about the even involving the history here in Conway with the Pine Street Community School. that was the school for Black kids to go to. So we were able to pay homage to them. And we also did one for Theodore Jones, just being able to share his history. And those were just the things that, just between conversation, and I will be forever indebted to Patty because, now on my resume, I can put cookie designer because she basically said, you run with it, whatever it is, we'll support you. So I've been able to just send over the images and create them. And then she does her amazing work with her team and puts the cookies on there and puts them out there every Saturday in February for people to pick up. You just talked about my Angelo and Scottie Pippen. So this year we've kind of been doing themes. Mm-hmm. So we just had, I don't know when this will air, but we're coming out of our first week in February. So that first theme was Arkansas natives. So Scottie Pippen, he was about 15 minutes away from me growing up in Crossett. He was born and raised in Hamburg, Arkansas. And then he played for the UCA Bears and went on to do a couple of great things. So I heard in Chicago and also played and also represented his nation on the United States basketball team. Then Maya Angelo spent time as a young girl in Stamps, Arkansas, and was known as a remarkable journalist, poet, civil rights icon, and she actually was able to perform her poetry at President Bill Clinton's inauguration. Mm-hmm. So in the coming up weeks, I guess I can share.
Good. I was going to say this episode will be available to listeners on Thursday. So can they get a sneak peek on Saturday's cookies?
Absolutely. So anybody who knows me knows how big of a Jay-Z fan I am, but second to, or I say somewhere down the list, I am the hugest Beyonce, Giselle, Knowles Carter fan. So this week will be a musical theme, just bridging the gap between old and new. So one of the cookies will be Beyonce, and then the other cookie will be paying homage to Aretha Franklin, who passed, I think it was 2 years ago. So Beyonce and Aretha Franklin will be the cookies this week. So we'll be paying homage to just the culture of Black History Month through music.
Very cool. Right. We just got Brink Eaton cookie news.
That's right. Like you don't get that every time.
Yeah. Patty cakes, cookies. So if someone's listening right now and doesn't know where that is, or is there a Facebook page or an address or something we can direct them to?
Absolutely. You can follow Patty Cakes Bakery on Facebook. These cookies will be given away at the Robinson location. She also has a location that is downtown Conway, a couple of
buildings down from the log cabin.
Yep. Sure. Couple of buildings over from log cabin right here on Front Street. And I've actually had people, I'll say that it's definitely grown because people have reached out and wanted to order the cookies. And last year, there were a couple of minority groups from UCA who bought some cookies too. So if you don't get the free ones and you just want to buy some, please support local. And you can actually order those cookies from Patty Cakes Bakery, and she can delve them up for you, how many ever dozen that you need. And if you're having any Black History Month parties, or if you're in school, still practicing social distancing with COVID going on, but you'll be able to order those and pass them out as well and just spark conversation.
Awesome. Okay, so what are some other things in the community? You talked about, like Black History Month parties, or what are some other things in this community that people can do to celebrate Black History Month?
Yeah. It's different now because of COVID, but specifically to Conway, you can definitely support Black businesses that are out there. We have a lot of restaurants around town. We have a lot of Black business owners, but one of the things that you can do that doesn't require any money is that you can just embrace not just Black people, but people who don't necessarily look and think the same way that you do. Just have those conversations and realize that as many opportunities that we have to see the differences in people, that when you get down to the core, that people really are quite unique and quite similar. So just learn, about the culture, ask questions, find a friend, talk to people, those simple things, just see that genuine people are out there and learn more about them.
That's great. Kind of kicking off of that. So what would you say to white people who would love to be an ally to people of color but don't know where to start? Don't know what can I do? What would you say to those people?
I'd say just begin with just basic conversation. When everything was going on this past summer after the untimely death of George Floyd, I got invited to the Catholic Church in Little Rock, and I myself am not Catholic. This was my first time, I think, probably in the Catholic Church, but to know me is to know that I'm always joking. So basically, they just invited me to talk, and I told them that, okay, this is your one time. If you ever wanted to ask a black person a question, this is it. What do you want to know? But I think those things are important. Just finding people that you feel confident in knowing, that you trust, who are in your circle, and just start with a basic conversation. As an ally, it's more so listening more than it is speaking, but ask those questions, understand where they're coming from, understand why they do the things that we do, understand what their culture is about, why certain things have meaning to them. Just it's nothing just overwhelming. Just embracing people in conversation, I say, is the beginning of that. And then from conversation, just actions. Find out how you can support different organizations. How can you be involved? That those are the things that I think are important for allies. Just having those conversations, and then from there, getting involved.
All right. So you kind of referenced last summer going and talking to the Catholic Church. Well, the Log Cabin last summer, we invited you and Sheila Franklin to share your experiences in your own words. And it ran, I think, sometime in June, like mid-June. So what kind of reaction did you get from that? What kind of feedback did you get from the community?
So I wanna talk first, just my reaction, because I think you're such a great journalist that you even sparked a reaction within myself.
Thank you. I'll pay you for that later.
No, seriously. Not just. I think one of the beautiful things in journalism is for people to ask those questions that allow others to share their own story. So within that, I think the first reaction of myself was just verbalizing some of the things that I had been through, like sharing. You allowed me the platform to actually speak freely about when it's late at night and I'm dressed like this. And for those who can't see the audio, I'm in pretty much all black sweatsuit, Nike hoodie, and I'll probably have my hood up. And
a Georgia mask, I might add.
We'll definitely we'll get to that. We'll get to the Georgia point. I know you know the story. But feeling that uncomfortableness of having to walk away from white women to make them feel comfortable because they may think that I'm approaching them to rob them, or being in the Walmart parking lot and walking by cars and hearing the door locks lock, those type of things, allowing me the space just to share what it felt like for me being a black man in America. So thank you for that opportunity, because I think the reaction was just, not traumatic, but it was almost therapy, just to allow people just to see what it was, because I think a lot of people don't believe that these things happen.
I think a lot of people don't even think about, that would never cross their minds.
Just those unconscious biases. Mm-hmm. But I think the reaction was, it was a different time. I didn't have or see any bad reactions, and that's one thing, especially with social media. Everybody has an opinion, and most of the opinions that you hear are the ones that don't like it. But I think most people were receptive to it, and if nothing else, whether they believed it or thought that it was just foolish, they actually listened to it. So I think
it was pretty well read. So that's good.
Yeah, I think that in itself, and on the flip side of that, hearing Miss Sheila's story, I actually had the opportunity to work with her. So just hearing her stories and what she had been through, somebody that you're literally sitting next to in the office, just being able to hear things that, this person you thought that you knew well, but hearing that they had a story too was definitely enlightening.
All right. So you serve on the Governor's Task Force for Police Reform. I don't think that's the full big long title. So talk a little bit about that. Where are you guys right now? What's going on?
So I can't even think of what Governor Hutchinson actually named the task force. Now that I'm put on
It's
spot.
a lengthy name. I remember typing it when it came out. So.
It was, and it changed. It started off as one thing, and I think when the announcement came off, it's something like the Task Force to Advance the State of Law Enforcement in Arkansas. I think that's like what the official's name was, and you're absolutely correct. That started after the death of George Floyd. Just the ability for Governor Hutchinson to kind of navigate those waters of having to do something and having to still kind of, I don't want to say politically correct, but still having to appease to multiple stakeholders in the state was just amazing to me. And I always say this, but he, in that initial meeting before the task force was formed, where we were just having conversation, he put his politician suit down, and we got to see not Governor Asa Hutchinson, but we got to see Asa Hutchinson, the person, just his candor, his humility, and everything. To see him still be governor, but to see him as a real person, I think just shows a lot about his character and demeanor. So from there, he took all the conversations that were had, and he formed I want to say we were probably the first in the nation. If not the first, we were definitely like one of the first, because I think after or around the same time we saw this happen in Texas and maybe another state. But he took law enforcement, citizens, attorneys, and put them all on his task force to look at some of the issues that had been going on in the community, look at some of the policies in law enforcement, and figure out, okay, this is where we are. How do we enhance these policies and make them better? How do we enhance the conversations that are being held with in the community and hear their concerns? And how do we work on these things to make Arkansas better? And in December, we completed that report and turned that in. And I think it was something like 27 action items. And a lot of people, had feelings, whether negative or positive, about it going into it. And it wasn't one group of people, whether that be activists, community leaders, law enforcement, who came to the table, who did not put their egos to the side, who did not put their own agendas to the side, and actually looked at this thing to make Arkansas better. So that was one of the best experiences that I had, because what we submitted were action items that could be accomplished at the state level, but things that could also be accomplished here at the local level to work and make Arkansas a national model of what community and police looks like working together.
Sure. Well, I think one of the things the Conway Police Department did, and I don't know if this was exactly in response to the task force or not, but I know one thing that they did, they came out and they made public their policies. They banned chokeholds.
Yep.
And so, talk about some of the things that are a priority for you, as like a task force leader and as a black man. What are some of the top priorities that we need to see? Yeah,
that was a huge accomplishment for Conway, because in our first task force meeting, that was one of the things that I had brought to the table, was just about duty to intervene. And he had monthly meetings, so that was in June. And by July, just to show you how swift things move, not only had Conway announced it, and that's no credit to me, because I think that Mayor Castleberry and I think at the time it was still Chief Spradlin was still here. Maybe Chief Spradlin was gone, but it was about that time, because they did that on their own. But one of the things that was immediately done was that the ALETA, which is the Arkansas Law Enforcement Training Academy, doesn't teach it anymore. So basically through a stroke of a pen through the task force, within a month, change was already being made. So duty to intervene was implemented there. And also they had the whole chokehold thing was banned as being taught already. So they had already implemented that within a month. So that just shows you how far and how fast that change can occur on certain situations. So I was on the one that I chaired, specifically looked at race and community interactions through policy and procedures. So a couple of things that you'll see in the report, which Conway is ahead on already, was making sure that everybody in the state had body cameras by the year 2025. And that piece of legislation should be worked on here in the upcoming weeks. It is something that Governor Hutchinson has signed off on in support. So looking at for funding of body cameras for all, there's a certain term, but basically all officers who are on the beat in the community having body cameras. The next one is a Know Your Rights campaign, and there may be legislation coming out with that soon too. So when I was younger, I went through a driver's ed course. No time within that driver's ed course was I taught how to interact with police. So how do we make sure that those pieces are included for our younger drivers? A good friend of mine who is a local representative shared that when he went through driver's ed, he basically was taught that you get out of the car and come to the back of the car. Well, you don't do that anymore. Mm-hmm. But basically letting individuals who go through driver's ed know the correct procedures and what you do when you're pulled over. You hand an officer your license. If it's in a dark area and you don't feel comfortable stopping, you can call 911 and basically they'll direct you to a safe, well-lit location. But things like that, making sure that young drivers know that. Those are a couple of things that I can think of off the top of my head that we specifically looked at. We had Conway was greatly represented because we also had two University of Central Arkansas students who served on the task force as well, Miss Layla Holloway and also Miss Emma Davis. So Conway was definitely represented on that task force, but they looked at a couple of community policing endeavors. And we actually all got to sit down with Conway Police and talk about those as well.
Oh, fantastic. So now that the report has handed, you guys have turned in your report, mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Does the task force disassemble? Are you guys still meeting? Do y'all have more to do?
Yeah. So we're as of right, the basically in the executive order, the task force ended upon the acceptance of the report. So we're kind of all disbanded now with the caveat that we're encouraged to work in our own communities and work between bridging the gap between the community and police and continuing those conversations. A couple of people have been contacted about certain legislation and testifying. As legislation is proposed, the big thing that I think we're all in consensus, I'll say all, but the majority of us are in consensus of and have proposed and worked on and advocated for is the hate crime legislation bill that is being discussed right now. And the governor, along with the attorney general and several businesses throughout Arkansas have voiced their support behind that. Arkansas is one of 3 states in the United States who do not have this bill that basically gives an enhancer to any crime that is committed against a protective class that is deemed to be a crime against that person because they are in this protective class. So that's kind of what we're advocating for now and hoping that it gets passed here in this General Assembly.
All right. Well, I appreciate you taking the time with us. That's all I have, unless you have anything that you just want to add.
No. Thank you to the Log Cabin again. Also, thank you to Jeanette. Like I said, I think you're a fabulous journalist. I think that
I don't have that much money, Jimmy.
Oh, no. I really mean that. I think that at a time where we're seeing print media really being affected not only by COVID, but just being affected by generations like mine, I guess the millennials and the Gen Zs who have kind of gone away from that. I think that you guys have done a good job of storytelling and reporting facts. Even though when sometimes that those facts see you guys getting hit over the head and people sharing their various opinions, I remain thankful that you are committed to telling the story and being brave.
Well, thank you.
Well, okay. That was amazing. Jimmy Warren, I enjoyed listening to you so much today. I wanted to circle back to something before we get out of here. It was so sad to me to hear you say when people are locking their car doors or crossing the street or whatever, you're a person with a graduate degree who works with the governor in Little Rock. I mean, you're an accomplished man, and to be treated that way, how upsetting to hear.
Yeah.
So, Jimmy Warren, again, thanks for joining us here today. This is Conway on the Record. It's the official podcast of the Log Cabin Democrats. Do you have any social media or anything you want to get out before we get out of here?
As far as social, you can just find me at Jimmy Warren, and then I think I'm somewhere in Twitterland at JD Warren too.
Okay, very good. Again, this podcast will be available this upcoming Thursday, and I don't have that date right in front of me, or do I? Yes, I do. February 25th. Am I right on that? That's the next one. That's when we'll be doing the next one.
Maybe February 11th.
February 11th. Yeah. Calendars are handy things to bring to interviews, as it turns out.
Note to self.
You can find us on SoundCloud, Google Play. You can find us on Spotify, iTunes. Give us 5 stars. Subscribe. Tell your friends. Love us. We love you. And I think that's all we got. Jimmy Warren, thank you so much.
Awesome.